Okay, good morning, everyone. We've got a full agenda, so I'm going to request everybody to stay on point and please keep the debates as short as possible. Before we start, we do have a couple of apologies. Councillor Brent Cowles cannot attend today, and Councillor or Deputy Mayor Rebecca Ryan has also put in an apology but might join us online. So I do believe that we have a quorum though with the councillors that are present. I'm looking at our governance advisor, she confirmed that. So any other apologies that you might have heard of and been notified on?
Just to say, Deputy Mayor's not a member of this committee, so we only need to take the apology from Councillor Cowles.
Okay. Right, that is moved and seconded. Thank you for your quick cooperation. We move on to the declarations of interest. Is anybody wanted to make any declarations of interest at this point? No, then we will move on to the confirmation of the non-confidential minutes of the last meeting. Does anybody have got any comments on that?
I'll move confirmation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins, for that. And can we have a seconder for that? Sorry, Mayor Terwell, did you have a comment on the minutes? No. Can I have a seconder for that, please? And Councillor John McCone. So those minutes are moved and confirmed. Thank you. We move straight on item number 5, reports of the Chief Executive and staff, in particular the infrastructure performance report, and that is on page 8, and I hand it over to either Mr. Cook or Mr. Randall, whoever would like to speak to this.
For the sake of time, we'll go straight to Mr. Randall, who's put this together primarily with the contribution of various members of the team.
Thank you very much. This is a report that we put together to try to give you an update on where we're at in terms of delivery within the infrastructure area. It covers financial matters, it covers compliance matters, and it covers some contractual matters. These are just areas that we thought would be of interest to the committee. I'm very, very keen to receive any feedback that you might have on the nature of the report or any areas that you'd like us to delve into in further detail. Likely, as well as that, sorry, if there is too much detail here and you prefer to see less, please let me know. If you'd like, if there's anything in the dashboards that you'd like us to change, please also let me know. But otherwise, I'm happy to take the report as read and then just answer any questions that you might have.
I'm a little bit handicapped this morning. The system has slightly failed me, as in all my notes and annotations of yesterday, for some reason, have disappeared. So I have to rely on memory, which isn't all that great either. However, I do make a remark in my notes, Mr. Randall, that I was very impressed with the report, and I thank you for it. So I'll hand it over to the floor. Does anybody else have got any other comments on Mr. Randall's report? Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do have some questions. On page 9, there's a sort of a slightly ambiguous paragraph that I wonder if we can get a fuller explanation. Solid waste shows both operating revenue and expenditure below budget. Revenue is in lower than expected refuse disposal fees. Expected revenue on this budget line is higher than it ought to be. Those two sentences seem to contradict each other. And I'm just wondering if some additional explanation can be provided.
Yes, through the chair. My apologies if that's a bit ambiguous. Our budget for revenue from disposal fees is larger this year than it ought to be, given the closure of Palmerston landfill. I believe that there was an error in making the budgets last year where we didn't actually reduce the amount of expected income from Palmerston landfill, but now that it's closed to the public, we're not receiving that particular revenue. Yeah. So apologies that that's not particularly clear. I can fix that for next time.
Thank you. On the next page, I'm just curious, the reference to Palmerston being non-compliant as a consequence of E. coli. We know that there's a variety of sources for E. coli. Do we know what what's causing this issue in Palmerston?
So in this case, where it's the Palmerston wastewater treatment plant that's breaching on its E. coli numbers, it is likely to be that the sewage is not being treated well enough to meet the compliance limits. It's not as though there's a significant amount of bird populations or anything else and we're seeing a reinfection event. We're actually seeing that the sewage isn't being treated well enough to be able to meet the discharge requirements.
Okay, excuse me, Jim. Councillor Linwood, please.
Thank you. Just on page 12 regarding trade waste, it seems to be an issue that is rearing its head quite often, and I was just wondering what the next steps with enforcement are going to be, rather than we just talk about it. What can we do about it?
Through the chair, at this stage, we're probably taking a bit of a softly approach. We recognise that a lot of businesses are doing it quite tough at the moment and expecting businesses to change how they treat or pre-treat before it comes into our system without any advance notice. You know, it's quite a significant amount of capital that needs to be outlaid by that particular business. So it's what we're trying to do at the moment is engage with those businesses. We're trying to get more discharge permits in place with a greater number of businesses because we don't actually have a lot in place at the moment. There's quite a lot where there is a compliant trade waste stream, but we don't actually have a discharge permit in place. So it's hard for us to then know whether there's ups and downs in terms of the strength or quality of what they're putting out. So we're trying to put that in place. We're trying to start with some decent monitoring, and then we can start working with those businesses where there is a compliance issue to look at upgrading what they need to.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins, you have an additional question?
Yes, one more from me. On page 11, we identify high-risk supplies, and there are a number of them. And the report also says that the regulator deems our position to be unacceptable. And we go on to say, while making best efforts to transition assets in a compliant manner, there remains an urgency to meet compliance requirements before council finds itself the target of regulatory action. So has regulatory action been threatened? Has the regulator given us a timetable? Is the timetable achievable? And have we started to implement it?
Through the chair, we're working with Tom at ROI, the water regulator. I have monthly meetings with them to discuss where we're at in terms of compliance and our failings. In particular, the pathway forward for these sites where we've got boil water notices in place. We've received 3 notices from them, I believe, 2 or 3, I believe it's 3, asking for information on our compliance pathway forward for those particular sites. As far as timeframes, we're beyond the timeframes that were supposed to be met. So all of the compliance issues that we've already got, we're out of time to meet them, so to speak. Which is why we're working so closely with the regulator at the moment to try to manage expectations around what we can deliver and in what kind of timeframes. We have a plan to upgrade all the supplies. There is funding assigned within the annual plan. There's a concerted effort from all involved to upgrade the supplies to meet the compliance requirements. Our goal is to have everything compliant before we hand over to Southern Waters. It'll be a little bit tight to get it done. Yeah, so some of these things it's just an upgrade. You just put it in a new UV unit or a new set of filters or something like that. Other ones, there's a bit more work to be done. And then we've got to establish that all of our monitoring's in place, and we've had clear measures for a number of months before we can then be deemed compliant. So timeframes will be tough, but we're working to get there.
Thank you. We've got Councillor McCone and Mayor Tovendale after that.
I've lost all my notes too, so it's not helpful, but I just compliment you firstly on the level of information that's here. It's great. All of a sudden we're getting snapshots of what's going on, so thank you for that. I noticed on page 9, Josh, it says there's about 550K of operational underspend at the moment. So being contractual, does that mean we don't have to spend that, or is that part of a contract that hasn't been spent yet?
Apologies. On that particular page, there's two areas where we were indicating a 550K underspend. Was that in respect to waters, or was that in respect to open spaces?
Probably the open spaces is the first one that caught my eye, but either or will do. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the report, I queried that one as well, and I've had a chat with our contract team to try to understand why there is that underspend, because generally in the open spaces area, there's very, very little fat, so to speak, within the budget. So we're looking into that to understand whether there's been an underclaim in some areas that we actually already owe the contractor, or whether we actually have more room in the budget, in which case we'll be looking to reduce the amount of money in that budget for the next financial year. We have been trying to make a number of savings over the last 12 months. So it could be that we're seeing some of the benefit of that, where we haven't increased budgets in the park space since we let the new contract. So that's been in place for 2.5 years now. So we've been trying to trim back the contract and the service levels to an acceptable standard without impacting, so that we weren't impacting budget. We might be now seeing that we've reduced it enough that we can actually reduce the amount of money that we're requesting from council. Yeah, but I need to do a little bit more work on that to see where we actually land.
I'll take Mayor Tovendale first, and then I'll get back to you, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. Just wondering on our water services delivery plan, if we are on track to get the plan delivered as we need to in the timeframes we need to. And I guess probably expanding on that a little bit around what work we need to do to be compliant within those timeframes. Are discussions happening, or do we need to start discussions with Southern Waters as to what the plan B is if we're not meeting those timeframes? I know the things that we've flagged with DIA as to whether or not the work program we've got in front of us is legitimately viable for us to carry out within a year. So yeah, just what are we doing in that space to kind of put some safeguards around whether or not we meet those timeframes?
So I'll address the water service delivery plan. So the expectation is that we will have a draft of the document completed by the end of this week. The intent is to share that with a number of interested parties as well as with council. And so we are on track based on that to have it available for approval prior to the designated date of the 30th of June. I think Southern Water is one of the parties that we will circulate the draft to. And I think once they've seen that, yes, we can have a conversation about what does the program look like, what are the priorities, and if there are any issues in terms of the transition and transfer.
Very conscious of time. We're already 15 minutes in the meeting. Councillor McCann, you had another one on point, please.
So I see in the operational records there, we've got 3 different contractors doing 3 different jobs. Is there a possibility in the future of putting that out as a one contract or breaking it up so that, because a lot of those contracts overlap each other, is the first part of that question. And secondly, the wee pink lines in one of those reports, are they, so is it a job thing that they're for, or is it actual paper compliance that they're actually getting picked up on, for want of a better way of putting it?
To the first question, in terms of combining contracts, it's absolutely possible for us to put out whatever we want to put out in terms of a contract. It's just going to be something that's palatable for the market. One of the concerns that we have, particularly with the roading maintenance contract, is the nature of the equipment and the investment required to buy the graders, etc., to be able to do the work. If we cut that up in too many different ways, it then reduces the amount of overhead and profitability for the company, so they can't invest in the equipment, and then we lack resilience in the organisation when a weather event comes along, because there isn't the additional equipment that they can bring in from outside of the district. So we're concerned about making contracts too small, but equally making them too big, we reduce the number of people that can potentially tender for the work. So if we were to combine the parks maintenance contract as well as the roading contract, it probably eliminates a few players in the market. It says that they wouldn't be able to do that work, which means we go to the bigger companies, which means we're probably going to be paying a higher premium. So we're constantly trying to play with what's included in which contract and how we can slice it in different ways to get the best value we can for the ratepayers. It's just it's a difficult thing at times, and somewhat changes based upon what market's requesting at the time. I hope that answers your first question. In response to the second one, I believe you're asking about the little pink lines in the performance criteria for our roading maintenance contract. So those are, a lot of them are primarily administrative issues, where we've requested a certain amount of work to be done, or there was a certain amount of work that was scheduled and that not that much work came through, or there was a reporting failure, or there was a data failure or something like that. Generally speaking, we see the physical works on the ground to be of a really high standard. It's just some of those little administrative things that are of a little bit of concern here and there. Overall, we do think that the contract is performing well. Yep.
Oh, that's great, because sometimes they can be interpreted the wrong way, and it's the physical job we want in the first instance. So thank you for that.
I have one question from the chair here, or as a councillor, Mr. Randall. We see now that we're going to pay more to our service providers, particularly the long-term ones, basically because of the fuel crisis and the fuel prices. My question is, do we actually have a contractual arrangements like a rise and fall clause and formula in those contracts, so that we can only limit it, that can actually contractually limit it to what the rise in fuel actually is? Or are we simply dealing with claims from contractors who hold their hand up, and we just have to basically check that what they're asking for is correct?
Yes, it's a little bit of a complicated one. So diesel prices, fuel prices are included within cost fluctuations, which are released every 3 months on the contracts. So we've been essentially asking contractors to hold off until those cost fluctuation numbers come through. The problem with the cost fluctuation numbers is there an aggregate of the increasing costs of civil construction across employment costs, across fuel costs, across material costs, across plant and equipment costs, lots and lots of things. And we're seeing a disproportionate increase in the level of fuel cost associated with the cost fluctuation. So a number of contractors have asked if we'd be willing to apply a fuel adjustment factor, which would rise and fall based upon the movements within fuel prices, which is a possibility. We then just need to understand how we can then remove it from the cost fluctuation number so that we don't end up paying twice. We're still working through the issue. It's quite a complex one from a contractual perspective. Yeah, so I don't have a very clear answer for you because it's a little bit unclear. We've received some guidance from NZTA in particular that do feel as though for the roading contracts in particular, they would rather us wait just for cost fluctuations to be able to catch up. In other areas, the cost of fuel is probably disproportionate and won't be captured as well. So it's challenging.
So as a rise and fall clause or formula is very challenging. Okay, we're going to leave this at this. I'd like to move from the chair that we accept this report. I'm sorry, is there something else? One more, Councillor McCone, we are very struggling with time for this whole agenda. Please do.
Appreciate that. So I'm assuming your traffic light system on the water side of things, Josh, a lot of that too is also administrative as opposed to practical. Otherwise we'd be in a bit more bother than we are. That's my interpretation.
Yes. Yeah. One of the challenges with the water contract is when we're going out and doing audits, most of the work's been buried. So it's very painful to see it. Unless we're attending to sites at the time of repair and supervising or monitoring the repair itself, it's difficult to get the quality aspects coming through. Overall, we are happy with performance. It's just that there's probably some issues with capturing quality information, photos, videos, etc., of the work while it's happening so that we can undertake a quality audit after the fact. It's not the same issue in the park space or the roading space because it's not buried. Yep.
So again, I'm assuming, to sum it up, that we're assuming for the worst, delivering the best on the physical side, and we've just got to tidy some paperwork up and some processes.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. So I'd like to move from the chair that we accept this report as read. Is somebody would like to second that? Councillor McCone, thank you very much. With compliments, Mr. Rendell, on the quality of the report. So all those in favour, say aye. Against? That is carried. Okay, we're going to move to the next agenda item, which is the Regional Land Transport Plan, and that is on page 26. And we have Mr. Gary Wook and Paul Hayes. One of you can start us off for us, please.
Thank you. Good morning. This paper is really just to formalise the conclusions of the workshop that we held on the 21st of April on the draft submission to the 2730 Regional Land Transport Plan, which we are required to submit by the end of August 2026. And that's relating to the financially assisted road maintenance operations and renewals activity. So just looking to get a formal approval from this committee as to the way forward, the recommendation that arose from the workshop of pursuing option 1, which was an increased investment of 22.9% above the previous 3-year period to allow council to maintain and recover levels of service within the Waitaki district.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I'll hand it to the floor. Any questions for Mr. Hayes? Councillor Hopkins.
Well, I'm not sure if it's to Mr. Hayes or perhaps to ourselves or to Paul and the finance team. given the issue we have taken to residents and ratepayers in the last month, and given the pretty vehement response to what we have asked of them or what we have proposed to them, I'm wondering if this option one is still valid and viable. It's an increased investment of 22.9% above the previous 3-year period. Now, granted, a significant portion of that will come from NZTA, but what is going to be the actual rating impact, and is it affordable now, or do we have to go to one of the other less expensive options?
And do I have a volunteer to answer that question?
I'm not 100% sure who it was addressed to.
Well, I did say possibly to you, possibly to Paul, possibly to ourselves. But I mean, it's a fundamental question. Has the options 19, 27 and 45% rate rises compromised us to the point that it is no longer tenable?
I wonder if you would entertain, Councillor Hopkins, this question as in, is this proposed rise of 22.9% or any other the options, are any of those included in the current rate rises proposal that has been put out to the community? Maybe Mr. Hope, you could help us with that one.
So my understanding this is for the next 3-year plan, so it would be the first 3 years of the LTP. It's just, you need to get these plans in very early in the planning process, and then unfortunately you usually don't hear the results of it until about 3 months into the new year. So it has no impact on the year that you're currently engaging on, and would need to be considered part of the long-term plan process, where Mr. Hayes might correct me, you could still go through and amend the program later on or not fund it to its full extent from the rates base based on the first 3 years of the long-term plan.
Okay, as I understand it from the papers that have been submitted, that this is actually a first step, and then this paper is presented to council at the next council meeting. Am I correct in that?
So the thought was that this paper was summarising what had already been discussed and concluded at the last workshop, and that our reading of the scope of activity and powers to act of this committee is that this committee is able to review plans and programs related to the procurement, development and maintenance of council assets and infrastructure, including the asset management plans, with this falling in the category of asset management plans. But if this committee feels that it's not within their power, then the next step would be to take it up to council.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Councillor Holding.
Thank you. I was actually trying to find the scope of activity before, but I did have that concern that maybe 22% budget implication might have to go through council prior, which I did, because I couldn't.
Stop.
That's correct. I mean, council makes the final funding decisions and rate setting decisions. This is basically, as Paul said, an asset management function to submit a plan to NZTA to start their considerations. It's not an absolute commitment from council to fully fund the plan as it's been submitted. yeah, that's something that can only be done through the long-term plan process.
Matt Avenel,
I guess I just feel the need to tease out option 3, which is obviously not an option any of us want to go to, and there's an issue with the maintenance, in particular of our rural roads in that space that concerns me. But I also feel like at the moment when we are looking at the levels of cost increases across the board, what part of this do we find the cost savings and just go, actually, we can't afford that level of service at the moment and we need to hold some lines, and maybe that sits somewhere between option 2 and 3. But I guess just probably a bit more understanding on the risk around option 3 at the 10% increase.
Yes, so all of these options were discussed at the workshop. They're all options. We didn't come with a recommendation. Each one comes with implications in terms of the levels of service that will relate. I haven't attempted to revisit any of the discussion that we had on the 21st of April in this paper, but I might just pass over to Gary to see if you've got any comments on that.
So option 3 is purely a line for cost fluctuations with the existing program, and so what that'll actually mean for us is that we'll just have the renewals that we have at the moment. We won't be able to replace the Loon Street or 7th Street retaining wall, the bits that need to be done. And maintenance will be under pressure. So we will need to actually start to implement and reduce our levels of service a lot faster. The network will start to deteriorate quicker, and we'll need greater investment to actually recover at the end of the day. So unfortunately, we're in a place where excuse me, where we need to actually go with option 1, but then reduce levels of service where we need to in a controlled way, so we can actually start to save money where we need to.
Okay, would you like to add before I hand over to Councillor McCowan, Paul?
Yeah, I think that probably the concern is that you're making one potential service level decision in isolation from all of the others. And if you make a significant saving in roading, quite frankly, it makes it a lot easier for all of the other things that you do to sort of fit those inside of any funding cap. I think, the point we've been trying to emphasise, if you're looking at service levels, you need to look at all of them at once, because it is essentially competition for funds and resources, and so you're almost making a default decision rather than a more holistic one.
Just through the chair, I guess that's where the crux of the issue of today's paper lies, because essentially we're being asked to set that direction at the moment in a time where obviously we're talking through annual plans and how do we cut our cloth more. That's certainly a message that's come through really strongly. So while I absolutely see what you're saying, I think to indicate that we're not doing that in a piecemeal fashion, rather than looking, waiting till we can look across the board, but we're still sending a different message to the community at the moment, is problematic. But yeah, I absolutely take your point. I think we're, rock in a hard place is probably a good way of explaining the situation there.
Before I hand over to Councillor McCowan, question from my side. Did I understand correctly, Mr. Hope, that this is part of a submission towards NZTA in terms of funding as well? Or did I misunderstand that either?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So unfortunately, the NZTA funding cycle doesn't quite align with the local council funding cycle, which is why we're having this discussion in what seems to be isolation from everything else. So yeah, we're required to put in a draft submission on towards the end of August. That then gets worked on through the year, and there's a second opportunity towards the end of this year to look at the any capital initiatives that we want to put in it. Gary, you could talk a bit more about the NZTA cycle, but yeah.
Yeah, so end of August is when the submission goes in for maintenance operations and renewals. And then we put a final submission in December for maintenance ops and renewals. So there's generally a little movement for to move from draft to final. In terms of capital renewals or capital improvements, there will be a workshop later in the year that we can talk through, and which will also be submitted in December. After that, NZTA does completes moderation in about March, April next year, and we'll get some indication of our program probably in around end of May, early June, and it'll probably only be approved in probably September
Right.
next year.
Yeah, just sorry to be pedantic, but basically we are talking about a submission that is a submission to NZTA. Correct? So we've established that. So, and the less you're going to ask for, the less you're going to get, because you're not going to get everything that you're going to ask for. Would that be correct?
That is correct. Yeah, the last submission we made, we only got 90% of what we had actually asked for. So 22.9% is not what we're going to get.
Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor McCann.
I don't think we've got any choices really. 22.9%, which is 23%, is a no-brainer for me, especially considering the rate rise we're looking at and everything else. And our rural guys, 50% of their rate is roading and water. And you've got to get the produce from the country to the town. I wonder how much is involved as far as, how much income, and I'm being tongue in cheek, comes out of 2 footpaths, one on each side of the street. That maintenance thing could be put right down at the bottom of the tree. We've got to make sure that our main infrastructure is sound. And in particular with the fuel crisis and everything else going on, that price is going up. We've got to be able to get that produce out of here. The other thing I would say is when you stop maintaining something, that's a very short-term cost, because all of a sudden you may find that turns around, and then the maintenance of that to open it up again is actually 3 times what it was going to cost to shut it down. So yes, there's a lot of work here, but right at the minute I'll be going for 22.9, which is option 1 in the roading side of things, and I'll be aiming mainly at the rural sector.
Is that a motion that you're putting up, Councillor McCann?
I can do if you wish.
I wish.
I'd like to move option 1 be taken into account and move that we look at the 22.9% based entirely on roading.
I'm happy to second that from the chair. All those, would you like to speak to it, or your last submittal has basically covered it?
Well, just to reinforce it, I think we have to maintain and look after our infrastructure assets for the betterment of our rural people and our town people, to make sure that we can provide a service that we're rating for.
Thank you from my side. I do not really believe in loss of services. I think loss of services will put us down another slippery slope apart from the finances that we will have trouble recuperating come from the future. So it is open to the floor for any other discussions. Mayor Taverner.
I'm going to vote against this one, not because I don't support in theory, and I do absolutely, but I also think when we're talking levels of service at the moment, there's things in here that we need to start finding where we can find the savings and where our level of service can be touched on. I think for myself, I'm probably sitting more in the option 2, which is recognising that we don't want to be going absolutely backwards, but that at 22% on top of everything at the moment is too much. While I take Councillor McCone's concerns on board and I absolutely share them, I think we've been called for what can we cut back on. And there's a few conversations on, you know, what seal could be, you know, not replaced and changed and different level of service. I think we need to spend a bit more time in the level of service discussion leading into the long-term plan. And this number 2 would give us a base level on that one, but we're still looking like we are actually trying to put a bit of control on the cost, because I think that's something our community is screaming for at the moment.
Thank you, Mayor Tavendale. So we do have a motion on the table, so I think we'll vote on that. And I'm looking at our governance advisor here. If I do something wrong, yell out. So we'll put it up to a vote for option 1. All those say aye. Aye. Noes?
No.
The noes have it. So therefore, Mayor Tavendale, are you moving a motion for option 2? Thank you, Mayor Tavendale. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Holding, would you like to speak to it, or we're just going to go straight to it? Things have been said. That is great. So we're going to put option 2 to the table. All those say aye. I'll vote in support as well. How many ayes we've got? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Then that's 3 in favour. The noes? Well, there's a. Sorry? And you'll abstain? Governance advisor, where are we with?
So we have in favour Councillor Linwood, the Mayor, and Councillor Holding. How did you vote, Councillor Flynn? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, and abstaining is.
Sorry, just read the motion out again, please, briefly.
Okay, I'll pop it up on the screen for you. It's basically approving option 2.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't have right in front of me.
It's an increased, Councillor Hopkins, is increased investment of 15.7% above the previous 3-year period, 24-27. No.
Yes, well, it's recommendation from the British Council.
Sorry, that was
Councillor.
clarified. This is a decision of the committee. It's not going to council. It's based on the delegations that have been given to this committee.
Through the
Mayor
chair,
Tavendale.
if I may. So basically, this is setting what the level is of what should be going to NZTA. When it comes to actually setting our budgets at the end of all this, that will come to council. So it's a step beforehand when we're sort of looking at what the level of service looks like.
So eventually it will still come back to council after it's gone to NZTA. Yes. Mr. Cook?
With your permission, Chair, could I just ask a question of the officers?
Yes, by all means.
Just for my own knowledge and the knowledge of the committee, if we put in a lower bid, does of 15.7%, does that mean that we will not be able to go up if we change our mind.
Yeah, so if we only put in 15.7%, it's unlikely that we'd actually be able to increase it to the 22. Potentially from next year, we might actually be able to get some more funding out of NZTA, but by then it's unlikely that we'd have actually local share to go with it. So it's pretty much safe to say that we're really restricted to what we decide.
Thank you.
Mayor Traverdale.
Through the chair, if I can, totally understand that risk, but I think as well, we're still looking at an increase in local share of 15.7%. So any increase in NZTA funding on top of that is helpful. I know we're not offering you the level of service we think we should be, but I do think we need to find a mix in there of affordability versus service levels.
Okay, if there is no further debate, we do have a motion on the table for option 2 moved by Mayor Taverdale and seconded by Councillor Holding. So we'll just go after this debate, go through it once again. Can I have the ayes, please? 1, 2, 3, 4 ayes, and we'll have 2 abstentions for Councillor McCone and myself. Sorry?
You're the best.
Yes.
So
So the motion has passed, okay, for option 2. Thank you. Right, then we're going on to roads. 5.3, page 29. Thank you, Gary and Paul. And we have a number of them. I hope we will not spend too much time on here, but we'll deal with them one by one if you like. So I'm passing on to Rachel. Rachel, my dear, over to you. Where?
I'll just do a quick intro. So yes, there are 4 reports for road stopping and disposal. Rachel has done all the work and written the reports presented to you today. They are clear recommendations for council, and she will talk you through each one and answer any questions for you.
Okay, we are conscious of time, so if you can, quickly.
Okay,
please.
so we've received an application from 4 parties to formalise the current use in the to address existing encroachments within the road corridor by stopping portions of Haven Street and Meraki and selling to the adjoining landowners.
Okay. You've just won the gold medal for being brief. Thank you very much. Yes, turn your mic off for a second. So, councillors and committee members, Councillor Holding. Sorry, Councillor Holding, sorry. Missed you.
Is this, I feel like we've had this, are we slowly doing portions of the street as we go, so we're not taking it? Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Hopkins.
Look, my question applies to all of them. What is the cost, and have we worked out, is it a cost that we will recoup through rating instalments or at point of sale, or do we want that as a lump sum up front? In which case, what is the quantum that each of the people are going to have to actually pay?
So as part of the process, all applicants have to pay all the costs relating to the disposal, along with a registered valuation and the cost of the land. I don't have those figures on me, but some of them can be upward of $20,000+. Upwards of 20,000.
40.
20.
20.
Yeah.
So do we, well, therefore, that's a not inconsiderable amount of money. have we thought about alternative means? I mean, we can say, give us 20,000 or else, or we can say, here are some options, which would you prefer? Have we looked at that second solution? Because that's, that's a lot of money just in one hit.
Councillor Hopkins, if I may, turn this. The way I read the paper, and please correct me here if I'm wrong, that all costs are for the purchases of the land.
Yes.
All survey costs, there is no cost to council once this is actually being transferred. Am I correct? Just a second.
Let me explain. My question is, how are we going to actually extract from the people who are required to make full payment, that full payment? All I'm asking is, does it have to be in one hit? Or have we looked at things like taking money from rates or actually collecting the money owed at point of sale?
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. I speak nicely to you. Can you also speak nicely to me, please? I'm trying to do my very best. Mayor Clavendale.
I believe these have been approaches made to council, so I don't believe that's part of this conversation at the moment. People approach council wanting this done, and we are responding to that appropriately, and we've got something in front of us, and I think it's a reasonable recommendation, and there might be some more conversation to go, but I am happy to move recommendations 1 and 2.
Councillor McCon.
Yeah, sorry, just for clarification, this is the street that's already closed in Maraki. Is that right?
Yes.
No, so the street is still there. It's just a portion of that road that's essentially being used by individuals currently.
So as a main thoroughfare as it used to be, it's now closed to the main thoroughfares, that's what.
I will have to confirm that with you.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, moved by Mayor Clavendale. Sorry, Councillor Hopkins.
No, I'm just going to speak very briefly to it. I'm perfectly happy to support this. All I wanted was to find out how much would be involved for the people who've asked for this. And having been told that, I simply raised the question, had we thought about a range of options for those people to pay? As of now, we haven't, but that's fine. It's an issue that will need to be addressed at some point, I imagine. But I totally support what's proposed in the reports.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. So we've got a motion on the table by Mayor Clavendale to move for option 1 and 2. Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Hopkins, very well. Any more conversation or explanation? No. Then I'll put it to the floor. All those say aye. Those against? And that motion is carried. And 1 abstention from Councillor McCann. Thank you, Councillor McCann. Then we go on to the second stop road.
1 and 2.
I actually have something to say about that, if you don't mind. Very quickly, there's a few references here, and it keeps coming up with Maraki instead of Hamden. Is that a mistake, or is that something that is connected to the title itself? When it mentions the street names, and then it says comment Maraki. And I have to apologize, all my notations have disappeared. So maybe you can have a look at that.
That appears to be an error.
Sorry, would you mind repeat it?
It appears to be an error.
So that will then nicely get resolved. One more other question that's more to cost. So these plans have been put together, very nice charts, drawings, etc., by a surveyor. The cost of putting those plans together to be presented in this report, are they actually funded by council or how are they funded?
They are funded by the applicant, and that's what's provided to council with their request.
Okay, and that applies to all of these maps that have been produced. Thank you. Very good. All right. Councillor Hopkins, I believe you were willing and able to move options 1 and 2.
Yes, sir.
And can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Limwood. All those in favour say aye. Those, sorry.
Just making sure we're changing the name as required in that motion.
Yeah, we definitely need to change the names in that motion. So if staff can look after that. So back to all those in favour say aye. All those against. And the motion is carried. Thank you. We move on to the third stop road, which is, well, that's an interesting one. McRae's. Any further discussions around that? I get a shake of the head, that's fine. I really frightened you with a debrief then, I do apologise. Yes, Councillor Hopkins,
I'm once
please.
again happy to move 1, 2 and 3 in relation to McRae's Road. The maps indicate that the little, well, I think the wee sort of adjoining cul-de-sacs connecting to the road, and I'm perfectly happy to move that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hopkins. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Holding, thank you. The motion is on the table. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? And the motion is carried. This is great. All right, then we go to the last one, which is Golden Point Road, page 45. Do I get another shake of the head, or would you like to speak to it?
So essentially, this is to complete a transaction from 1990 as part of a road realignment of Golden Point Road, and these portions were stopped but never transferred to the adjoining landowner. So they've remained with council since that time. It serves no public use or operational function, therefore the logical transfer to the adjoining landowner, Oceanic Gold, is recommended.
Okay, Mayor Taverdale.
I just want to say thank you for the work involved in all of these. I know it takes a bit to get to this stage, but it is slowly just chipping away and putting a little bit back in the coffers, and it's needed and appreciated. But yeah, happy to, I think we've got a movement on the table, have we?
Sorry,
Have we got a movement on the table on this one?
not yet.
Happy to move.
Oh, we have a question from Councillor Holding.
Apart from now the evaluation, has there been any real cost to council for these bits and pieces over the years?
So there is rates. It's only there is a remission on it, so it's a small value, and then obviously the administration costs of looking over it every year or two when it comes up.
Okay, I did have a comment on there, but as I say, my annotations have disappeared, and I think I know why. Sorry. Councillor McCann, please.
I'd just like to continue on. I'm heartened by this. We have a whole lot of these bits and pieces around the countryside, and to chew them out, they might look costly at the first instance, but the savings in the long term are huge. And if we can start carving them off, then it's going to start saving us a lot of money further down the track. So thank you very much for the work on this.
And I'm happy to echo that. Governance advisor, I have now found out why all my annotations have disappeared. So I will talk about that later. Somebody's in trouble big time. So can we have a mover, please, we can have a seconder in Councillor Linwood. Okay. Motion's on the table. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye, and those against. And this one is carried as well. Thank you. Sorry. I have Mr. Cook here holding his finger right in front of me. So, Mr. Cook, please.
Just before we go to public excluded.
Thank you very much. Well done.
So
Yep.
just before we go to public excluded, Mr. Rendell has a point of clarification to a comment he made earlier in the meeting.
Okay, then in that case, we hand over to Mr. Rendell, and I'm
Yes.
looking at the clock.
My apologies. The question that Councillor McCone had as the last question with regards to the traffic light report, with respect to Three Waters, I mistakenly saw it as a question regarding contract management rather than a question regarding our compliance. The traffic light report at the end of the performance report is regarding compliance. So it does show that we are non-compliant in a number of areas. I wanted to put that on record and correct that in public rather than letting my comments stand. The compliances are for a number of reasons. Essentially, we're not meeting what we're required to from a drinking water quality assurance rule perspective, as well as a resource consent rule perspective. It isn't necessarily largely administrative. There are limits that are imposed upon us where we're either having detrimental effects to the environment or we're potentially risking public health because we're not compliant with the drinking water quality assurance rules. My apologies for misspeaking. I just wanted to correct that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, in that case, that concludes this part of the meeting, and we're now going to the public excluded meeting of the Asset and Infrastructure Committee meeting. We need a mover and a seconder for going to public excluded. We got a mover in Councillor Bone. Can I have a seconder, please, in Councillor Linwood? Thank you very much. All those in favour? Against? That motion was carried.